Hey folks, welcome back. So, we're just over 2 weeks away from 10.1, 3 weeks until Season 2, and now is the ideal time to prepare. So, in this video, we're going to have a quick rundown of what you can do for early gains, essentially, and how to prepare. But first, the first time ever on this channel, we have a little bit of sponsored content. So without any further ado, let's discuss our sponsor for this video, and then we will get on to the preparations. So today's sponsors are Babel. And for those of you that don't know, Babel is a language learning app that is tailored for bite-sized, convenient learning with short lessons, games, flashcards, lessons, things like that, all at your convenience and your fingertips so that you can learn a language. As you can see on screen, I've started to learn or relearn Spanish in order to broaden my horizons a little bit. Now, these lessons are created by experts, built by over a team of 100 language experts, voiced by native speakers. And while other apps use machine learning and algorithms to teach you languages, you're always going to have someone on the other end should you need to ask questions, live lessons, things like that. And all you need is 10 minutes a day in order to be able to be holding conversations in your new language of choice within as little as 3 weeks, which is huge. And with my link below, you guys can get up to 60% off should you decide that you want to relearn a language, whether it be French or Spanish. If you're here in the UK, remember doing it at school, want to get back into it. Or if you decide that you want to learn something completely new, like maybe Dutch or any of the other languages that Babel provides. It could be German, for instance, because I know that's a huge appeal for a few people that I know, at least. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of the video, and let's get into the mainstay that is the preparation for 10.1. So starting with the obvious then. Obviously now is an ideal time to be leveling any alts. We currently have time walking going on from now for another couple of weeks until the patch hits, and time walking is a fast way to level. Alternatively, if you have a couple of friends or guild members that are looking to try and get you to re-roll, or there might be the option of it in the future, you also have what's known as the Brackenhyde Hollow leveling system. Now, for those of you that may or may not know or have heard about this, Brackenhyde Hollow, the outdoor zone within the Azure span, is just elites. Level 70 elites, gnolls. A bit of a pain in the ass if you're on your own trying to do world quests. But if you're as a group, you can have a tank, a couple of DPS, and you can very, very rapidly level. Like getting from 60 to 70 in this area is somewhere in the region of about 90 minutes to 2.5, 3 hours, depending on how busy it is and if you can find a quiet shard. I've leveled a couple of my characters via that method, as you saw initially. I now have 2 warlocks at 70. I've got my warrior, my DK, my paladin, and also a shaman as well. Now, for me personally, I'm going to be looking at just playing my 2 warlocks. I might do a little bit of tanking here and there with either my paladin or my DK, purely for some additional content on the side in 10.1, but the main focus is going to be warlock for me. So not too much leveling to do my end, unless I was to say level my 3rd warlock, Orabox, who is Alliance. Not that that's going to make much of a difference in 10.1, because we're finally going to get to the point of having essentially cross-faction guilds, which will be lovely at long last. Wonder how many people are going to swap off horde races for better alliance racials. Every man for himself as a human is nice in PvP, because then you get 2 dirty trinkets. But that aside, that brings us to gear. Now, for those of you that may or may not know, crafted gear, such as the Azure Weave Mantle and the Azure Weave Slippers, in 10.1 are getting a bit of an item level jump straight off the bat. On the PTR, up until this stage, and we can assume it's going to continue, they are changing from 418 to 421. This means that any crafted gear you have, whether it be, lariat, amice, Azure Weave shoulders, feet, belt, rings, as you can see, I have a Signet of Titanic inside, they're all going to be 421. So if you have the sparks spare, whether you've acquired them through Mythic Plus or rare farming or anything of that nature, and you have a spark here or there, maybe getting off pieces like braces, belt, back would be a good shout in terms of gearing to get that little bit of a jump up from 418 to 421 at the start of the patch. The problem that you have to bear in mind, and this is something that Blizzard has released since, is sockets. Now, crafted gear at the moment, and with the jump to 421, is going to have the sockets still applied from Season 1. But with the changes to the crafting system and the fact we're going to get a new spark, essentially, a new type of spark to get our item level even higher for these crafted gears, once we upgrade to that new Season 2 item, essentially, so we start getting to the likes of 430, 440 item level crafted gear, that's when we actually lose the socket off things like belt and necklaces or wrists. For the rings, it doesn't necessarily matter because the crafted rings have a socket on them already, which is nice, as does the lariat. But again, the lariat might get nerfed, so we might move away from that. But key thing being belt and braces, you will lose the socket when you craft that higher than 421. So that is something to bear in mind. Blizzard have already explained that because you will need the Season 2 items. So in terms of priority crafts, if you have the sparks spare or you want to farm the sparks, again, you can do that by rare hunting, doing Mythic Plus, raids, dungeons, any form of challenging content. End game has a chance to drop a spark. They are very low. I've only had one drop since the quest was the quest enabled for them to drop, and I've played my warlocks pretty much religiously at this point for a while. Still only had one drop, but I have seen some other people, like my friend Saito, for instance, I believe, had 3 or 4 drop in recent weeks. So, bit of a hit bag, but if you are lucky enough to get them, I suggest crafting extra rings if you can, maybe changing your stats here and there potentially, if you know a crafter that can do that, or again, going for your off pieces, so your backs, your braces, your belts, your feet, things like that aren't necessarily going to conflict with tier, that you can put ideal stats on. Because at the start of Season 2, which is just over 3 weeks away, we'll be looking at going into May, the 9th, 10th, 11th, depending on where you are in the world for May, we're going to be rapidly running towards certain keys for various stat weights. Something Warlock specific, if we do move away from Lariat, and we do go for the Azure Weave set, as I think we might, especially in AoE settings, what you'll find is we do actually have a direct translation from the Wolfstrike Pendant, and that will be one of the neck pieces that's from the Vortex Pinnacle. So expect to be running that a lot if you're a Warlock for the Haste Mastery neck, because again, that will likely be Biss if we're not using Lariat. So aside from that, then we've got a little bit of gear, we got the sparks, we got, that end of things. Is there anything else we can do really to help improve? And the only other real answer is whether or not you're going to be a bit of a moneymaker. Now, obviously, with the changes to crafting systems and the improvements to crafting gear, the ability to craft your own gear or recraft your gear is going to be huge. Now, as you can see, I have been slacking somewhat when it comes to professions, and there was a bit of a trap in that, because obviously if you're not the first to market, it then gets very, very difficult to be crafting gears, or there's not a lot of demand on my realm for tailors at the moment, especially when I sank a considerable amount of points into my draconic needlework early on for the both the Azure Weave tailoring and the Chronocloth tailoring. I also didn't need to put points into either of these because I have so many Azure Weave bolts and Chronocloth bolts that I didn't need these, because it's a daily cooldown and my autistic ass likes to go and make the bolts anyway. But I sank a lot of points into these because I had more faith that they were going to be stronger this season. Now, I think this is a good investment on my end, but it does mean that the garment crafting fell behind. So I am working to unlock and improve. You can see that I've completely maxed out shoulders. This worked well in my favor because I also had the MS of the Blue that I could make use of. But I'm now working towards being able to get my braces, my belts, feet, back, and these are all going to look to be the next big crafts, essentially, that I can focus on, because I will be able to keep their item levels up when not needed. Feet is the next one I'm aiming for specifically, because that feeds into the Azure Weave set, if I'm correct. Because you got to bear in mind, if the Azure Weave set is an intellect scaling proc that has about a 45 to 50% uptime depending on what you're doing, and that is huge. The amount of intellect it provides is basically like a full set of heroic, like, chess piece. It's like 400 and something on intellect, which means that's only going to improve as time goes on. What we might also see is the Chronocloth taking a pride of place due to the fact that that is a haste proc, which then brings you into legs and belt. But that's all for the theory crafting side of things once we actually get into 10.1. This is just a preparation side of things. You also have enchanting. Enchanting is going to be a really good one to focus up on, because enchanters will be responsible for creating the item that allows us to then upgrade our gear. So sparks are going to be a little bit different. Rather than them being like a random drop as they are now, or part of a quest reward, crafters will be able to make variants of them depending on the strength. But if you're not much of a profession fan, all of this is completely irrelevant to you, and the best parts of the preparation stage fall back to level any ults you might be playing, or you feel like you might be touching, or look to get your crafted gear set up in op spaces so that you can immediately go to a, 421 pair of 421 rings, 421 shoulders, and 421 feet in my case. And again, if I'm lucky enough to get a spark, I'll be looking getting a cloak made, or maybe a belt. Either or. Probably cloak, because there's not many good cloaks in 10.1. Had a brain fart there for a second. Outside of the raid cloak, which is going to be astronomically busted. But we'll cover the gearing once 10.1 hits. Anyway, I'm now rambling, so we're going to bring this video to an end here. Again, massive thank you to Babel for being the first sponsor of my channel. Please do go have a look at them. Have a see if there's any languages. Please do use the link below in the description for 60% off. And I will see you guys all in the next one, and probably on stream as well, because there's been a change of circumstances. So you'll be seeing my face a hell of a lot more now, which is good or bad, entirely up to you. Comment below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.